Welcome to Champions Battlefield. I'm your host, Trevor Carroll. With us in studio is my broadcast partner, Jamak Golshani. We have our current BFL amateur, featherweight, and lightweight champion, Paul Cowie. Paul, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Two division champ Paul. Last event, not last event, the one before that, BFL 52, your mouthpiece flew out of the cage into the stands. What happened?
Well, I mean, it was a hard fight. You know, Gio Platon was throwing bombs. So one of the very first big punches he landed on me just completely destroyed my nose.
Oh, man.
Just splattered across the side of my face like a Jackson Pollock painting, you know. So I was dealing with that. I was, breathing through my mouth. Gio was still whipping heat seekers at me. But in the second round, I had started to really turn it up, put a lot of pressure on him. I had him against the cage. I was feeding him shots. We broke apart for a second. He just hit me out of nowhere. I think it was a right hook or something, and just blasted me right in the jaw. And my mouthpiece just flew right out of the cage onto the ground, like right over by the commission and everything. And I was kind of rattled because I felt like I was starting to put on the pressure and turn it up. And then of course they have to stop it, and they got to find the mouthpiece on the ground, and they got to put it back in. They got to give it to me. So I felt like it gave him a bit of a time to rest, but it was a big punch.
So you think it was a disadvantage for you for the mouthpiece to go out? Like that,
I felt like it kind of got in the way of my rhythm a little bit there.
Yeah. Speaking of that, your mom is usually in the crowds, and she's known to be your biggest fan. It must have not felt that good having your son's mouthpiece fly
Right. Yeah, I was talking to her earlier after the fight. That was definitely not her favorite performance of mine to watch. She's always out. She's a huge fan of the fights, right? So she's always out supporting me and screaming her head off and commenting on all battlefield stuff. But she was not liking that.
Has she always been at all your fights since the beginning?
Oh yeah, she's one of the reasons I even really got into fighting. Like, she watched The Ultimate Fighter back in the day when I was like 13, and she was like, "This is really cool." And I was on the wrestling team in high school, so she just came to me one day after school and was like, "Oh, I found a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gym at Hyde Creek. You know, I know you're into wrestling. You like The Ultimate Fighter. You might like that." And it turned out to be West Coast BJJ, Don Whitefield, back in the day, right? And that's kind of where I got my whole start, was my mom approaching me about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
That's crazy,
at the
man.
local community
It doesn't
center.
usually happen.
Right? Yeah, she's a huge fan. It's one of the things we can kind of bond over, me and my mom. We're always catching all the events, and she's always talking about it. She's always at Battlefield to support me.
That's so awesome, man.
You started as a jiu-jitsu guy, but now your style has kind of evolved a little bit. So you got a really exciting style. I think the fans really love to watch. I think just describe your style, how it's evolved over the years.
I started as a jiu-jitsu guy. I've been doing jiu-jitsu for like 10 years, but really, when they opened CQMA and I hooked up with Blake Lorette is when I started really learning how to strike, and I just fell in love with it. You know, we got a bunch of guys out there, me and Tay and Vince, Ryan, Christopher, we're all just sparring, throwing bombs at each other, and I just kind of fell in love with it. It's just a lot more exciting, I think, than shooting to the ground or trying to grapple someone to the ground. There's just something really visceral about standing there in the pocket and throwing bombs at someone. It's just,
Is there anybody that you wouldn't stand and trade with, or any circumstances or any situation that you don't think?
I mean, the thing is, if I'm standing and trading with someone and getting the tar beat out of me, I'll probably try to find a way to bring it to the ground pretty quick, you know. But there's nobody that, I mean, the fight starts standing, right? And I'm always going to go out there and feel out and see what's going on and start throwing punches. And there's no one that I can think of below 170 that I'm really intimidated by the prospect of standing there and swinging punches at. So if I'm losing, I'll try to shoot to the ground, take it down. But, I mean, every single fight, I'm going to go out there, and the first thing I'm going to do is figure out whether or not I can get away with standing and trading, right?
Speaking of fights and fighters and styles, you have a fight coming up against Josh, and, he's known to stand and bang as well. Is there a mutual respect because of your styles?
Oh, absolutely, he's a tough guy. I love any fight of his I can catch. I do catch. I love watching it. And I got a lot of respect for him, not just because of how exciting his style is, but because of his kind of ethic and philosophy as a fighter. He takes fights against the toughest guys he can find. He's going down, taking the best fights. And that's kind of what you have to do to evolve, put in that work and fight everybody and see everything.
Exactly. He fought your teammate Taylor Christopher, and that was a hell of a fight. I
Yeah.
mean, if your fight against Gio isn't the best, one of the best fights, that fight was, right. We're wondering if that fight you trained with Taylor, obviously, to
Oh, yeah.
prepare him for Josh, right? Do you think that gives you an edge?
I mean, that fight was a little while ago. I think it gives me a bit of an edge because, we know now that Josh is a super tough guy. He can take a hit. He can give a hit. But when it comes down to game planning, it was a while ago. He's obviously evolved. And it's nothing we don't know now, really. But, I mean, I guess it gives me a bit of an advantage knowing that if I hit him with a good shot and he doesn't go down, not to panic because that's kind of what we're expecting after that Tay Christopher war, they had.
Speaking of Taylor Christopher, we were sitting around Trevor and Jay and us just talking fights, and Jay said, what would be a dream matchup? It would
Right.
be Paul against Taylor.
Right.
And we, how did the sparring sessions go?
The sparring sessions, man. If you guys think that the Gio fight and me was one of the best fights, or Taylor and Josh was one of the best fights, you guys should come down to CQMA on Friday evenings and watch me and take Christopher spar. Because we're both kind of similar sized guys. We're both having a lot of success. We're brothers. We love each other. But being the two guys in the same weight class, both going up the same, there's obviously a bit of that rivalry there. Not like we want only the best for each other, but we're always kind of pushing each other and trying to step up and prove that we're, maybe have the edge here, the edge there. So we're always pushing really hard in sparring, and it's kind of like a shoot box back in the day,
Yeah.
Like Tay and I, you see us sparring, it's kind of like one of those old Looney Tunes cartoons where someone hits someone, a big dust cloud comes, and they're just moving around the gym, just frying pans coming out there. We're smacking each other, and at the end of the sesh, we're just laying on the ground, kind of like, oh, God damn.
Tired and
They're legendary, man.
I want to talk to you about another one of your teammates, Curtis Harriott. His record doesn't show how good he is. This guy came out and he's probably one of the most underrated fighters in BFL at the moment, at least. The guys who know the history is a little bit different. What's the story there? What can you tell us about what's going through his mind right now after his last fight?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he's necessarily underrated. I agree with you that his record doesn't reflect his talent right now. He's had a bit of a rough slide lately.
Mm-hmm.
But I think any of the pros or amateurs who have trained with him, we all know that he's one of the most talented guys in the company, really. And I haven't had too much of a chance to talk with him about what's going on with his head or anything afterwards, his last fight. But he's pretty mentally tough. He seems to take these kind of things in stride. So, yeah, I don't really have too much to say on the subject until I can actually talk to him. I don't want to be playing armchair psychologist or anything.
Yeah.
He's had a couple tough moments where I feel like really the last fight he was dominating and he just made a mistake, got caught, left his leg dangling and Perron took it. The Zach Khan fight, he was killing him, maybe even like a 10-8 first round, and then something just happened there and didn't go his way. It's not, I don't know. It's just been a tough break.
Fair enough. Tell us a little bit about Paul outside the cage. Who do you live with? What do you do on a day-to-day basis? Your life isn't all fighting, right?
No, it's not all fighting. I live in Northside Port Coquitlam, for anyone who doesn't know. And there's not too much going on. I'm actually kind of blessed to work in a restaurant. I really like food and cooking and working with that stuff. So I work at a restaurant called Orange Kitchen and Bar. It's a great place to work. It's got great food. Everybody loves it.
Nice
it's like
plug.
a family, right? Promised them I'd throw one in there. It's it's good. I wake up, I go for a run, pet my dog, go to work, and then come home and drive over to the gym and train pretty much every day. There's not too much going on there.
Awesome, man. I want to thank you for joining us here. It's been awesome having you getting to know you a little bit.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's been great.